Welcome to Something About Salem. I'm your host, Jared Tedeschi, and today on our first episode, we are going to be talking about Salem supernatural stories. With us, we have Tony, also known as Big Tony.
Big Tony.
Big Tony, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So, Tony, can you tell me, before we get into the specifics about Salem supernatural, can you tell me about your initial interest in the topic and in ghost hunting and the paranormal?
Sure. When I was about 12 and a half years old, I lost my little brother, and kind of always had this feeling, even after he was gone, that he was kind of around me at all times and supporting me. Mm-hmm. And then later on into adulthood, those feelings were always kind of around. My twin daughters were born about 8 years ago, mm-hmm. and when they were about 2 years old, one of them had a dream that she woke up and told her grandmother about, of a small boy wearing glasses, which my brother was blind and had glasses because he was sight impaired, was tickling her feet, woke her up. And from that day forward, she called her sister Eddie, and Eddie was my brother's name.
And there was no way she would have known that.
And there's, they've seen pictures, but at a year and a half, 2 years old, she was pretty young. And to this day, they're 8.5, almost 9 years old, and she will not call her anything but Eddie. And so I've talked with people who claim to be psychic and read energies, tell me that they believe that he is living on through them in some, kind of a spiritual way. So it's always kind of fascinated me and made me want to learn more and understand it more.
Yeah, that's great. That's sweet. So can you tell me more about what makes the supernatural scene in Salem unique specifically?
Well, when people watch shows, some of the national shows about some of the paranormal investigations and the ghost hunting, you don't see people talk about Salem much, but they don't realize that we have a pretty deep history. When you talk about some of the areas that are interesting here in Salem as far as from a paranormal aspect, it goes all the way back to Native American tribes. There was a local Native American tribe long before the whites ever settled at the end of the Oregon Trail here, mm-hmm. That had this goblin-like creature that would roam the mountain and wait for people to walk by that were wandering the mountain. He's got a really complicated name that I don't remember.
Okay.
But he would snatch passerbyers, and it kind of went down as a folklore story that parents would tell their kids about, not wandering away from the tribe and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that was long before, people started really settling this area.
Right.
And we've got just, right across here from the studio, we've got one of the first hanging grounds, or the last hanging ground here in Salem.
Wow.
Where there were 4 hangings. And there's, reports of hearing the rope kind of dropping, people walking around, people kind of moaning, that has been reported, all the way down to some of our state buildings that have been around. Some of the state hospitals, Fairview, and some of those places were built in the 1800s.
Right.
An incredible history. And I think it would be, we'd be kind of remiss if we didn't, take a look at that of how long the history has been in this area, that people are going to pass away and die, and that, that those spirits could be roaming around and, still kind of here trying to contact us.
Yes.
So.
It's very important. So, as far as, you wouldn't physically violate a corpse or,
sure.
or vandalize a grave. Yeah. So as far as ghost hunting and the idea of disturbing the dead, mm-hmm.
Where
do you see ghost hunting with that concept? And do you follow a certain code of ethics when you are
Sure.
ghost hunting, to respect the dead and the spirits?
I think one of the biggest things to remember is that, you look at the transition of where ghost hunting and the paranormal activity has gone in the last, say, 20 years, that people kind of look at it as, oh, that's fun, let's go hit a ghost and let's go find one and let's go do something. And the problem is that, a lot of times kids were out acting crazy, getting a little drink on and knocking over tombstones and vandalizing. So it kind of gave a bad name to people like myself and my partner Kent that run Abnormality, that we just want to go out and learn. And people are like, I've had some people out here, they've damaged the stuff. So we hold to a very strict standard of, we leave it better than when we got there. We're not a group, you hear a lot about groups that like to go out there and antagonize spirits and try to get them to react out of anger. Mm-hmm. And that's not anything part of what we do. We're strictly to just learn, observe, and record things that we see, because it's so fascinating to us, some of the experiences that we've had, that we've shared with each other. from our past that make it fascinating and want us to learn more.
Yeah, that's great that you're all bound together by your interest in it. So you mentioned your group Abnormality. What makes up a group of ghost hunters? So you mentioned that you speak with psychics and you have your partner. So what jobs and positions are there on a ghost hunting team?
I think it's different. We've contacted and been in touch with ghost hunter groups from around all the way up to Vancouver, BC, down as far as in the southeast United States. And I think that, a lot of teams who have been together for a long time have a lot of people who each have a specific role on a team. We just kind of learned in the very beginning that we kept it small because it was easier to control.
Right.
And you didn't have to deal with, the egos and people and, I've been on camera more, you've been on, it just having the two of us, it kept it more of a cohesive unit. Because I know that a lot of big ghost hunting groups, especially the ones that you see on TV, they've all got kind of a specific job title.
Yeah.
And, we've been associated with the ghost hunting group, in the area that was everything had to be a title. And for us, it's just we're here to learn, we're here to understand, and to maybe broaden our horizons a little bit.
Right.
And explain, because, people kind of look at you funny when you say I'm a ghost hunter. They're like, you're kind of weird. And for us, it's not that. It's just about learning and understanding and that's it.
That's great. So you mentioned skeptics. How do you come across skeptics frequently?
Yeah.
So do you feel like you have a responsibility to prove them wrong, or do you feel like,
I'm a firm believer that everybody has the right to their opinion. And I know that, thinking back to when I was a young man, feelings that I had before that, I was probably a skeptic.
Right.
And I think it's just a matter of, we live in a society that we are so bombarded with media and social media and TV and movies and violence that we've just become numb to things. I think that if people would just slow themselves down a little bit and pay attention a little bit, that it's probably going to be more people that are going to see and experience the things that we have.
That's great.
But everybody's just so wrapped up in everything that's going on. I mean, try to have a conversation with somebody in downtown Salem.
I know.
Their face is down in a tablet or a phone, and it makes it difficult.
Right.
And when you slow yourself down and you just sit quietly and listen, it becomes more apparent that there's things happening.
Yes, when you think about the things that you can't necessarily see. So.
And that's a big deal. People are always like, why are you always out at dark?
Yeah.
And for us, it kind of goes back to that old saying that when one of your senses is dulled, it tends to heighten the other ones. So we have a tendency to be out in pitch black.
It's fascinating.
It's actually one of our initiations that we do, our training area around here, where you have to go out by yourself in complete darkness. But it just kind of heightens your hearing and your other senses.
Yeah.
And so I think that things happen during the day. Most things are just kind of like on a playback. They're happening all the time, but you've got so much going on around you, it makes it difficult.
Right. So as far as people go, just the average citizen, something that you mentioned to me earlier was that some people don't want you or your team, your ghost hunting team, to come into their house or into their space because they're afraid of the negative energy that it might attract. What are your thoughts on that?
We've had a lot of people that have called us and contacted us through our website wanting us to come investigate their house. And so we use it as an opportunity of, would you mind if we film it, use it as a training tool on our show. And they said, well, I don't want people to think I'm weird.
Gotcha.
So it's like they're experiencing it, but there's still kind of that kind of stereotype around it that people are just a little bit off their rocker. Because the first response is not, well, what is it? It's, what's wrong with you? Are you hearing things? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating right? Things like that. So we had a lady who
are you on drugs?
Exactly. Are you on drugs? And we had a lady that actually sent us footage that she had gotten off her cell phone, and we were both like chomping at the bit to get down there.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I want you to check it out, but I don't want people to think I'm weird. And she ended up just packing up and moving out of the place without notice.
Wow.
It was a rental, and she just left because she thought people, there's always going to be those people that are going to be like, you're weird,
Yeah.
But I think that's why people are so concerned and worried about what others will think that they don't just stop and try to work through it and figure it out.
Right. They have to sort out their priorities. So we have time for one more question.
Sure.
Big Tony. So something that I have used in the past and a lot of people use, you can get it at your toy store, is a Ouija board. My friends and I used to mess around with one a little bit. And, now looking back, I'm not sure that was the best thing to be doing. So can you kind of tell me what you think about Ouija boards or trying to access, the paranormal via tools like that.
Sure. You know, I know a lot of people like to use Ouija boards. I had an experience when I was very young that we didn't really know what we were doing. I think in the right hands with experience, it can be okay. But we had something that was pretty twisted that happened that kind of scared me to the point where I haven't been around one since.
Right.
So I think that, you know, it's not my thing, but it is other people's things. And I believe that life is about duality. There's a good and a bad to everything. And just as many times as we go out and we run across peaceful things, you still have that opportunity or chance to catch something bad.
Yeah.
And when you get those people that don't know what they're doing, has that opportunity to see kind of, we had somebody come at us and touch us and, you know, as a 10-year-old.
Wow, yeah.
I was like, I'm good.
As a 10-year-old, I mean, as anybody, you know.
We thought it was funny. We saw it on TV and thought it would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
To sit and do it. And there's actually a lady in a local group from Portland that teaches classes on it. She's like, I guess what you would call a professional that swears by it. But we've had people say, well, you want to do that? And we're like, no, we're good. You know, for us, it's just about asking questions, learning, having experiences, and things like that.
And analyzing them and working through them.
Yeah. And just, you know, getting that footage and being able to show people what we found and, you know, what it meant to us.
Yes. That's so interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today, Big
not a
Tony.
problem.
I had a great chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we're going to take a look at a local haunted theater. The Elsinore Theater has been a staple to the downtown Salem streets for more than 90 years. It's not surprising, then, that there have been many supernatural stories and activity to report. Stories suggest that most of the ghosts that reside at the Elsinore are friendly and enjoy the company of their living counterparts and the creative energy that they bring to the stage. Myth tells us that the ghosts might be descendants of George Guthrie, the original owner of the Elsinore Theater. His daughter allegedly fell from the second-floor balcony to her death and has never left. It has also been said that a young boy was murdered in the theater's bathroom. Patrons have even claimed to see his blood reflected in the mirror. Still, the show must go on at the Elsinore Theater, and it does. Perhaps with some supernatural spectators. The Elsinore Theater, however, is not the only spot in the downtown Salem streets that has a supernatural story to tell. We're here today at Engelberg Antiques with Jeff Steele. Jeff, thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yes, and we're here to talk about a haunted doll here in Salem. So, what's the doll's name, Jeff?
Her name is Lily.
Lily.
Yeah, and she acquired the name from a customer who came in and actually kind of got into a mesmerized state and stayed with the doll for a few minutes.
Wow, okay.
That's how we learned the name.
So did that patron tell you that the doll's name was Lily, or was the patron's name Lily?
No. She said the name was Lily.
And it came to her?
Yes.
After spending time with the doll?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So you mentioned to me before that the doll is of your personal possession. So how did you acquire the doll originally?
Being in this business, we go to a lot of sales and estate sales, and I purchased a trunk in Portland that had some other objects in it that I wanted, and plus I wanted the trunk, and she was in there, and I was going to throw her away, and my friend says, "Oh, she's too cool. She looks like something from Annabelle, or looks like Annabelle." And I could. He made the case for me, and so it was in my house for a while, and it goes with my decor.
Gotcha. So you had it in your house. How did you come to know or learn that the doll was possessed?
I've had objects before that have given me, I've had bad dreams before. And when you have a constant repetitive bad dream, you've brought something into your environment that's not good.
Right.
And I started having bad, violent dreams with the doll in my home. And it took me several weeks to figure out that I had something going on. And how I learned this, I had a dream catcher one time that had been what the native people would say is full and needed cleansing. and it gave me the same type of things, except the dreams from the dream catcher were far more violent. So I actually cut the dream catcher up and threw it away.
Gotcha. But you couldn't do that with Lily.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I decided to bring her down here, and was hoping that someone would buy her that might have an interest in this type of object. And there's museums and other people that have been interested before. Just never could never agree on a price.
Right. Okay. So, do you know any other stories of the doll outside of your own experience?
Well, in here, like I said, the girl who basically attached herself had a moment with the doll,
right?
That called her Lily, and then there was also a time where a boy was taking a picture of her, and I don't know, his phone got completely screwed up. I mean, it went into a weird picture frame.
Gotcha.
It was like almost like turning off. It was very odd.
There was something going on.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, does Lily affect the store in any other ways? Are there maybe any other supernatural stories you have to share about the store in general?
The store has had times where we've had ghost moments, and it's our chair room downstairs has 3 of us were in there talking, and all 3 of us saw a flash go over the top of the chairs. I also came in here one morning early and was walking down this aisle towards the back, and on the other aisle 2 music boxes went off at the same time.
Wow. Very curious.
Yeah. Recently we have not had any activity, though. Or I haven't noticed any activity. Someone else might have. I haven't. But I haven't heard any stories.
Right. Well, those are all very interesting stories in themselves. So
this was actually a silent movie theater. So yeah, this building was at one time.
Building. Okay.
This building was built in 1915 by Paramount.
So it's destined to be some kind of supernatural.
Had lots of people in it. Let's put it that way.
Right. All right. So one last question about Lily. Do a lot of people come by to see Lily? Is Lily
yes,
a public fascination? One might say.
She's become that way. Yes.
In the last, how long would you say?
Oh, it's over 2 years, or after. It's been about 2 years since I brought her in here. So.
And word spread about town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing about the doll too is that she is as found. She's never had anything done to her. I mean, her eyes are out of her their sockets, so to speak. And she has that's real hair. That's actually
real hair,
real human hair.
Human hair on the doll.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The doll was made in Germany around 1912.
Gotcha. And so, how did you come about that information?
On the back of her neck, there's information, the manufacturing and the model. So dolls actually were marked on the backs of their heads for many years.
That's very interesting.
So, and yeah, she's made out of wood. She's composite, what they call composite. So.
Well, she's a very interesting curiosity to have your hands on.
Yes, and Salem seems to, or quite a few people in Salem and other places have come to enjoy coming to see her.
Yes, it's great. Thank you so much for sharing the story of Lily with us, Jeff.
Thank you, Jared.
Yes, thank you. That's all we've got for today. I hope you learned something about Salem. I know I did. I'm Jared Tedeschi, and I'll see you next time.